Welcome to the Maxwell Leadership Executive Podcast, where our goal is to help you increase your reputation as a leader, increase your ability to influence others, and increase your ability to fully engage your team to deliver remarkable results. Hi, I'm Holley, a Maxwell Leadership Facilitator and Coach.
And I'm Chris Goede, Executive Vice President with Maxwell Leadership. Welcome and thank you for joining. As we dive in, I just want to say thank you to all of our listeners, and especially those that are engaged and active, and we get comments, we get feedback. What I love about it is that even sometimes when we're on the road and people will hear your voice, hear my voice, Maxwell fans, and just say thank you. I want to encourage you to keep sharing this, not only with your peers and your friends, but with your team. Use this as a tool for you to begin developing other people. A lot of times they say, we just don't have time to develop people. Well, you have team meetings, right? Like, let's take this, let's share it each week. And so we're grateful for you.
Also say that we don't look as tall as
that's right.
person as we do sitting.
That's right. While we're sitting down here. But as we get started, just as usual, Perry's developed a learner's guide. And if you want to access that, if you want to leave a question or a comment, maybe your team, as I just talked about, is struggling with something, and you said, hey, will you talk about this? Perry would love to go write a lesson for you on that. And then we will kind of banter back and forth. You probably already has one. I want to encourage you to go to maxwellleadership.com/podcast. Click on this podcast, and then you can fill out the form right there, download the learner's guide, and you'll be good to go. Well, this is kind of starting off the year, 2025. And we're going to talk about a topic or a phrase that not a lot of leaders like to do, don't like to talk about. And as team members, we don't like to receive sometimes. We're going to talk about mastering the annual performance review. Now, as we record this, right, Perry still hasn't received his review yet, and I think this is why he brought this title to me.
These things.
So we're going to talk about this.
So
that's right.
How do I coach?
How do I coach Chris to give me
before I get my review to do that?
Yeah.
So, yes, this was. I got bad memories of this. I was a first sales guy for a while, then got promoted to be a first-line manager and had my first team. I had 11 on the team, and I got into, I thought, leading. I wasn't. I learned so much about what I didn't know. Yeah. But I spent that first year, I probably came in like in April or something of the year, just naturally encouraging people, tell them how great they're doing, giving no feedback, no guidance, no nothing, and making everybody believe that they were my number one top performer, because that feeds my level 2 personality. I just am good at that. But then I got into January and with IBM at the time, and they had a 3-point rating system. You were a 1, you walk on water, you're amazing. You're a 2, you're a above average contributor, and a 3, you need some improvement. Pretty basic. And so I just told my boss, no problem, everybody's a 1. And he said, nope, they can't be 1s. Here's your skew. You're going to have a 1, maybe 2 1s. You can have 4 or 5, maybe 6 2s. Everybody else is a 3. I go, no, I don't think you understand. He said, I don't think you understand. It's all tied to bonus money. It's all tied to your budget. It's all tied, and it's already decided. And I was mortified. And I realized I had no clue what performance development was all about, and how to help people with their performance, or how to grade performance, how to evaluate performance. I'd never given one thought to it. And so the annual review came up, and I found myself in trouble. I upset everybody. Well, except for the one, I think I gave out 2 1s. They expected it. The other people all were wondering what happened. And so I went on a mission then to figure out how to let people know how they're really doing. And I thought maybe we could share best practices. I know you've been doing it a while as well. And maybe just give our listeners some best practices on that's coming up. It's too late to recover from what you didn't do this year, but you can get this year started off in a positive way.
I love your story and your example, because I think that resonates with so many people that are out there listening and a part of leadership and a part of teams. The opposite is true as well. Perry is mentioning it from his bent as a leader, which is at level 2, the connection, highly relational. There are a lot of leaders, and I've had this experience in the past, that are bent towards the level 3 and the production and the results. And the way that they delivered the reviews would have been exactly opposite of you giving everybody a 1.
Right.
And that had a drastic impact on the team, the dynamics, the engagement, and the culture. So there's a way to go about this. You're going to have some learned behaviors around it. What I like about what you said is that was an annual review, and now it's more of a conversation that we need to be having throughout the year. Mark Cole said to me a long time ago, and I'll never forget this. He said, if you get to your annual review and anything that's talked about in that review is a surprise, really to either one of you, but specifically from the leader to the team member, that's on you. You're not leading properly.
Totally agree.
And then I would also say on the other side, right? You're not leading properly if that team member hasn't been comfortable enough. And we'll talk about how to make this very effective to be able to communicate to you maybe what they're dealing with on a continual basis, not just every December or January as we look at doing this. You may have to do those HR, compliance, understand all that. Right. We're just saying we're going to give you some things to think about when you go through this, but also we want you to apply them throughout the entire year with your team.
That's actually pro tip number one. Is focus on continuous feedback, not just one time a year. I would think that that's not that common anymore, just one time a year, but I do hear it on coaching calls. Got my annual review coming up. What have you been talking about? Well, nothing.
Right.
I thought. So one thing I learned right away, as to your point, with what Mark was saying, is that create a culture of feedback, of continually letting people know. I would also say that learning to be very direct about things. Like one of my mistakes early on was I gave continual feedback on your performance, all positive. No, that's called encouragement.
Yeah.
That's not feedback. So feedback's got a couple different ways, and the constructive piece, the challenge piece, was left out of mine, and it set me up for a bad event in January because everybody thought, to Mark's point, everybody knew how they're doing. Great.
Right.
Well, you're not, while you're doing well, can you improve? Can you be better? Yeah, everybody can.
Yep.
So let's focus on that.
Love that. So in addition to that continuous feedback, we also want to encourage you then to set aside some time to actually do a little bit of a structured review. Okay. So this is a little bit different, right? You're going to continuously give feedback. But what we'd like for you to do is maybe on a monthly basis, once a month, maybe it's quarterly, is that then set aside and have a structured time where you actually go back to a document. You actually go to the KPIs. Where are they at? Where are they measured? I know with one of the sales teams that I have the opportunity to lead, right? I talk to them often, weekly, if not daily, with deals and sales and this and that. But we sit down once a quarter and we're like, okay, here's what your KPIs are for that quarter that then lead into. And so what we're saying is not just the continuously, but man, set a little bit of a time where you can implement something on a quarterly basis.
And you're setting up an expectation that my supervisor is going to review my performance with me on a quarterly basis.
That's right.
It may not be official. It doesn't carry any of the weighting of the bonus plan or whatever, perhaps, but it could. But I think they should be expecting that they're going to get feedback from you on a regular basis. I like quarterly as well.
What I think that does, when you just talked about a lot of our listeners have some type of tie to that for their annual review. The great thing about that is you give that team member time to make sure that if they need to redirect, if they need to give a little bit more, they need to back off, whatever, because that is leading to what that annual review is. And if you don't have those, again, then you're going to get to the end and then there's no chance then to redirect anything for being a part of a package. But if you're having those conversations on a daily basis and then sitting down and strategically looking over the document on a quarterly basis, it leads to that annual review. The annual review becomes, the work is already done, but it's done throughout the year versus saying, can you block my calendar for the whole week? Because I've got to prepare, reviews for my entire team. That's just not good. And then you don't even remember what happened in Q1 or Q2, or for me, last month, right? So
I just had a call this week. A coaching client said that a certain person on the team keeps saying, I want the next job. I want to be promoted. I want the next job. I want to be promoted. And he said, well, because they did these quarterly reviews, they were able to put that that's part of your development. You want to have the next job. Here are the things you need to do. And so the plan, the performance plan laid out, these are the gates you need to go through if you hope to qualify for that promotion. And he said, my job is now easier because they didn't do any of it. When we had our next review, they had no progress. So now they're going to complain about no, you're not. Yeah. You didn't do what you were supposed to do. Good. But I know that because we've been talking about it along the way.
And it makes highly relational guys like you and I leading, it makes it easier to do that, right? Because you're just pointing back to a conversation that we had, to a document that,
right.
Yeah.
And I think tip number 3 is really this, use the term KPIs.
Yeah.
Are there clear objective criteria being discussed. It cannot be subjective. It didn't feel like you were doing this. It didn't feel like you were doing that. I'm not sure. No. We need to, they all needs to be tied to what are the metrics? What are you trying to accomplish? And it can be a wide range of metrics. Definitely there's revenue and expense and profit and things like that, but it can also be projects. It can also be hours. It can also be contracts. I know some things you use. You put these metrics and we measure against that. Leads, lots of things you can do, but it can't be just here and there. It's got to be specific.
Hey, podcast listeners. Many of you listening right now would probably love the autonomy that comes with owning your own business or becoming a coach that helps other businesses succeed. Well, we have a phenomenal strategy where you are 100% in control of your own business, earning income on your own terms, and have access to the people, tools, and resources you need to build a thriving leadership development business. When you become a Maxwell Leadership Certified team member, you join a global community of entrepreneurs led by our expert team of mentors and faculty, including John C. Maxwell. You'll also get one of the top leadership certifications in the world next to your name, giving you the boost you need to get started. Visit us online at maxwellleadership.com/join the team to find out more.
I want to go to tip number 4. Perry and I have talked a lot about this, it seems, over the last really 12 to 18 months, more than we ever have before, about this psychological safety environment of your team member. And what we're really saying is, how do you get to a place where you're leading and your team feels seen, valued, and heard? That's what we're talking about when we talk about that. So tip number 4 for us is make it a two-way conversation. And I think when you do that, and you're open to it, you're not just doing it to check the box, you're being authentic about it, I think you'll get to a place where your team members leave those meetings feeling seen, valued, and heard. The importance, though, of the two-way communication in addition to that is, I love this because it allows me to ask questions to begin to see how they're thinking, right? Like, where are they at? Why do they feel like they're exceeding here? Do they understand that? Is there an awareness issue? What does that look like? And then, or where are they missing it? And I can help them. The other thing is that it really helps, as I was just saying a minute ago, helps me maybe realign them with something that maybe I wasn't doing a good job at communicating, and I missed it, and it would have been my fault down the road if they would have had a negative marker, or maybe they just wasn't hearing it. So really want to encourage the opportunity for you guys to make it a two-way conversation and actually act like you enjoy the conversation, right? Like get involved in it. When you do this and you do it through this process, which is uncomfortable for everybody, it strengthens trust for you as a leader and trust in the team member and how they're responding. That will not only help that session, but it's going to carry over in the field of what they're getting done.
Yeah, and I think about, I was just hearing you talk thinking, why am I doing the performance review? Am I just is it a tick the box exercise?
Yeah.
No. Go back to the 3 questions everybody wants to have answered by you.
Yeah.
Are you showing that you're trying to help me? Are you showing that you care about me? Are you showing that I can trust you? Are you actually trying to add value to me and make me a better contributor, a more valuable team member? That does make me psychologically safe. Another tip, I think number 5, is I notice a lot of organizations that I'm working with you don't just report to one person, you kind of a matrix. You might be working on a project over here or something over there. And so one thing I started doing was doing my homework, which was get multiple inputs before I prepare to have a review with you. I want to know, have I talked to your peers? You have subordinates. Have I talked to other leaders that might be your matrix, your manager in the matrix, but you don't report to them, you report to me, so I'm going to do the review. But have I gathered input from you, from other supervisors, from other people in the organization? Do I know what your effect is on others? Do I know how you're viewed by the others? Do I know where you're providing value? I only know what I see. Very dangerous, because I don't even see you. We have our one-on-one, but then I go over here and we're. Yeah, I've done my homework. I've checked you out.
That's good.
Yeah.
What I love about that is, from both a positive and a negative standpoint, I actually have a team member that is about 90 days in with us, and I have a certain perspective of certain things, and there are a couple of things that I just couldn't necessarily figure out exactly what it was. And it could be a personality thing, could be a professional thing, all kinds of things. And so what I did was I went to 3 different leaders that have interacted with this and said, hey, tell me what I need to know to be able to share, because this individual is a keeper in our DNA and I want to add value, right? So I love that you put that in there because, again, it takes a little bit of work, but it opened my mind to say, oh, that maybe that's just a personal thing right there. Or, okay, so now it's collective. Let me make sure I kind of coach that individual through that. So 100%, I would encourage you to make sure that you're getting multiple perspectives. So that leads right into number 6, which, again, this is going to take a little bit of time for you guys, but we want you to prepare thoroughly, right? Like, this is a big deal to them. It needs to be a big deal to you. And come prepared with others' perspectives, as Perry was just talking about, with data. The biggest thing I want to share on this one is to come prepared also with examples that back up what you're talking about.
Yeah.
How many times have you been in a review and they're like, hey, Perry, man, you just messed up right there. Well, tell me how I messed up right there.
Tell me more.
I don't know. It was just, you were bad.
Felt like
right?
a mess.
It just felt like, I just felt uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Didn't you feel it? No, I didn't feel it, right? Like, so I wrote down 2 different things. I said, share examples of that where they were influential and give them an opportunity to grow their influence inside the organization. Could be cross-functionally, it could be in your team. Hey, man, your influence was on point right here, and I could see the team buying into it. I like to use that word. And then there's some growth opportunities. Give them examples, him or her, wherever you go, hey, right here the other day I saw this. I think that it would be received differently if you did it this way, right? So you're giving them influential moments, and then you're giving them growth opportunities. When you bring examples, this is me personally, I give that leader a lot of credibility right away because they're bringing the real life story to me, right? You know, we love to talk about football, right? It's like, here's the game film, right? Look, you jumped off sides, right? Like, there it is, you and the ref throwing the flag, right? There's credibility.
I call it offside.
Yeah, right? And versus me saying, hey, man, I know you had a penalty the other day, whatever, you know. So you're able to bring examples to the table, and it just brings credibility as a leader that your team member goes, they're watching, like they're paying attention. And then, now I completely understand because I did this.
What's your point of view on this? I've worked a couple of organizations that required that you have the employee, the teammate, write their own review and give it to you before you do the review. Do you have a point of view on that?
So we've done that here at Maxwell Leadership a couple of times. We've done it from, everything from a rating scale to you're talking about 1, 2, or 3, and they give the number first. I prefer to have a conversation about that during the time. I'm going to come with my thoughts. I expect them to come prepared. I'm not a big, hey, let me put a 1, 2, 3 on you. I understand why some organizations do it. Yeah. But when I did it, I would never look at their data before I did mine.
Okay, good.
Because I wanted to sit down and go, where's the gap? And then I let the gap drive our conversations, whether it was I'm way higher rating them than they are versus the opposite. And those are 2 gaps you have to address during that. So it may give you a starting point. So for my personality, I lean towards the connect, the let's verbally process it through it. You would do the same thing.
Right.
That may not be the best for every personality. So some may gravitate towards that. And I think it's okay. If you're going to do that, though, I just encourage you not to look at their results before you put down your thoughts and results. And then the coaching moment is look for the gaps. And it's similar to what you do. And we're going to talk about this at the end of the call with our Maxwell Leadership Assessment. You're looking for those, the deviations that are like, whoa, we have an awareness issue here one way or another, and we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, good. I like that. Number 7 was just make sure you end whatever review with action steps. They should not
next?
leave confused about what do I do? What do I do with that? How do I get better? How do I prepare myself for the next evaluation? And so just making sure that it's clear and about what's been discussed, and that if you have expectations for them to do something, it's probably best to put that, make sure it's clear, maybe in writing, to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. And number 8, document consistently. Perry mentioned just a few minutes ago, we were talking about this journey that we want you to have throughout the year. It's not just an annual thing. It's going to lead to an annual event. If you do this right here, if you document consistently and you have a consistent process, and it's not on one sheet of paper the first quarter, it's on a sticky note maybe I'm using my life as an example on my desk, and then a remarkable on the third quarter. Right. But it's consistent, and then you get to the end of the year, that's your conversation. To your point, it's not like, hey, I didn't really know. Well, we talked about it Q1 and Q2. I think the other thing when you document it is that it does ensure accuracy. It goes back to the game film. And some may work in a little bit more of an environment where you got to for compliance and for HR issues. And so it's just always good to document and have that and include the specifics in there. Use the examples that we're talking, document the examples. When you do that, just make sure as you document this process, when someone's reading this document, they're not in the conversation with you and the team member. So be careful of just they say don't ever read tone, facial expressions in email communication. We all do it. Right. But how do you get to a point where you're able to be constructive? It's like we talk about care and candor. Just do it in a way knowing that somebody's going to read that down the road someday, and you want both sides to be represented extremely well.
That's really good. Well, I know the performance review may be a corporate policy and maybe an exercise that has to be documented and recorded, but it doesn't have to lose the meaning of why am I really doing this? I want to help you. I care about you. You can trust me. I'm here to help develop you, and I want to see you grow. And I think when you have that message in there, the message to them starts to sound a lot more like the caring leader that I want to be working for. Yeah,
that's good. Well, as we wrap up today, I'm just going to take our conversation and the 8 tips that Perry brought to us, and I just wrote down what did I hear? Like, as I was going through this, what was my takeaway? Number 1 was, let's make sure we're preparing. Let's give the team member who spends a lot of time helping us, we owe that to them, and not just on an annual basis, and make sure that you understand the context behind the data that you're gathering.
Right.
Don't make assumptions. I love your idea. Hey, let's go talk to a couple different people. Secondly is focus on this as their development, not as their review.
Right. Yeah,
because as we're developing, we always say, man, it'd be awesome if at every level inside the organization, we had a succession plan, which means the only way to do that is to develop every single person throughout the organization. So when you go through this, you're going to be able to see the growth areas. You're going to be able to help create a plan. Then the other one is, hey, let's set clear expectations. So prepare thoroughly, focus on development, set clear expectations. Then finally, as Perry was just saying, let's follow up. Let's document. Let's make sure we're all on the same page. Now, before I throw it back to you to close, one of the tools that a lot of organizations, a lot of leaders use, we've used it here, is our Maxwell Leadership Assessment. And it's a great tool to where you can actually assess the leader or the individual on how they're leading, how they're perceived by their boss, their peers, those that they lead, and then outside vendors. What I want to encourage you to do is go to maxwellleadership.com/5 levels. You can spell out the number 5. You can use the number 5. There's a form there, and I want you to fill that out. This is a tool that you think would be good for you or your team to use. It is, when we were talking earlier about, hey, how do you feel about using numbers, right? When they come to you, it gives you a launching pad of a conversation. And this could be something that you did on an annual basis that we'll be able to show you the growth from one year over to the other or the decline. And you can be having those conversations. So it's just a great tool for you to jump off and use during your performance reviews.
Fantastic. So that's at maxwellleadership.com/5 levels, however you want to spell that.
That's right.
Yeah, I love that. Thinking ahead.
Yeah.
And you can get that assessment. You can also go to maxwellleadership.com/podcast to learn more about our offerings, see the family of podcast opportunities that we have for you. Also, you can leave us a comment or a question. We love hearing from you, and we're very grateful you'd spend this time with us today. That's all from the Maxwell Leadership Executive Podcast.
Are you ready to elevate your leadership to new heights? Join the movement towards High Road Leadership with John C. Maxwell's latest book. In High Road Leadership, John explores the power of valuing all people, doing the right things for the right reasons, and placing others above personal agendas. Learn how to inspire positive change and bring people together in a world that divides. Order now and receive exclusive bonuses, including a keynote on High Road Leadership by John Maxwell himself and a sneak peek into 3 impactful chapters. Take the first step towards becoming a High Road leader. Visit highroadleadershipbook.com to order your copy today.